What would happen if a Warzone sweat who's basically never played Apex Legends dedicates 1 month to playing the game? Can I learn all of the crazy movements? Can I drop a high kill game? Is Apex more fun to play than Warzone? Well, there's only one way to find out. Okay, so the first thing I had to do was get a baseline for my skill. I was going to be tracking my progress in 3 categories over the next month: my highest kills in the game, the highest damage badge that I collect, and the number of new movements that I learn. The last one's kind of silly, but I love learning new movements.
What a nerd!
Now honestly, I was pretty confident going into the first game, and that confidence only grew when I immediately got a kill on the drop.
Oh, let's go.
I mean, I had watched hours of Apex tutorials, I knew the best building to land, and I could shoot pretty straight in Warzone. That had to mean something, right? Well, maybe not, because after that, things went downhill pretty fast. I quickly realized that people had a lot of health and the gun magazines had almost no ammo, which meant I needed to make every bullet count if I wanted to get any kills. But that was easier said than done. Oh god! So instead of destroying the lobby like I thought I would, I spent most of the night running for my life.
Please, stop chasing me. No!
And I had absolutely no clue where I was going.
What is this? Oh my gosh, no way.
By the end of the night, my best game was 4 kills that I got from mostly shooting people in the back. I didn't collect any damage badges, and my movement was not great. What had I gotten myself into? I went to bed completely overwhelmed, and by the next morning, I was beginning to think I had made a big mistake. I wanted to play a new game because I've been unhappy with the slow movement in Warzone 2, and gaming just hadn't been fun for months. But maybe Apex Legends was too hard. Maybe I should go back to the game that I spent hundreds of hours playing because at least I was good at it. But unfortunately, it was too late for that. Now I should mention there are some rules for this challenge. Number 1, I can't get help from friends because I'm not looking for a hard carry. Number 2, I'm only playing pubs, mostly because I don't have ranked unlocked, and honestly, it kind of scares me.
What are you just sitting there for? You stupid mother doing?
And number 3, I only have 1 month to train. Now to prep for this month, I did a lot of research, and instead of just dropping into the Battle Royale mode, where I would need to learn the maps, the looting, the mechanics, and so much more all at once, my game plan for the first few days was to simplify. I would just focus on learning the mechanics first by practicing in the firing range and getting into as many gunfights as possible in multiplayer, and once I wasn't a complete bot, I could graduate to learning the Battle Royale part of the game.
And the first thing that I wanted to learn was wall bouncing.
Now it looked pretty easy. Just slide jump, press jump again at the wall, and... Okay, this is going to take longer than I thought. Well, the hours went by as I struggled to learn the right technique. It honestly felt strange to be so bad at movement because it was something I was good at in Warzone 1. But after a lot of failures, I finally started to get better, and I could hit wall bounces from all different types of angles. Well, at least some of the time. And after some aim training with this new movement skill, I felt ready to play against some real players. Now, I'd love to say that I hit the ground running, but it was more like walking, because getting better at this game was going to take some time. I still didn't know how to use all the guns.
It's a shotgun?
The special abilities that each legend had were pretty confusing.
What is that?
And the wall bounces that I had practiced for hours were hard to use in a game. But it wasn't all bad, because I found out that I really liked using SMGs like the car, and I also realized how important hip firing was in this game. And then something happened that would change the course of history. Okay, it was the slowest wall bounce kill of all time, and it wasn't going to change history, but I was so happy to see my practice paying off that it motivated me to keep going. So on day 2, I learned how to wall bounce without sliding, which seemed really useful in close quarter fights. That might not have been a real person. And then I learned how to change direction in the air, which opened up all kinds of new movement possibilities. I was on a roll, and it felt like my progress was never going to end. However, on day 3, I started to notice something. My aim was pretty good when I was fully focused on winning the gunfight, but when I tried to use movement, I started to miss a lot of shots.
What in the world is that?
Yeah, it's definitely one thing to know how to do the movements, but then it's something completely different to be able to do them in a gunfight under pressure.
I was also finding out that the popular movement I had learned to change direction in the air was kind of controversial because it requires a scroll wheel or a macro. You can't get banned for doing it, so there are a lot of opinions on if it should be in the game. Now you can technically tap strafe in all 4 directions on controller, but I only set up the forward direction because that's what keyboard users do, so it seemed fair. But this meant that I had to rebuy my controller buttons, so even after a few days of practice, I was still messing up a lot in gunfights. I was starting to wonder if learning all of this movement was a mistake. Maybe I should just focus on shooting my gun. This is an FPS game after all.
I do know that, yeah, but that's no fun.
So I decided to double down on practicing moving and aiming at the same time. I worked on the basics like strafing and shooting, and I worked on the more advanced stuff like wall bouncing and tracking. I also realized I could unholster my gun during slides for faster movement. It wasn't going to happen overnight, but I knew if I kept practicing my movement and aim at the same time, eventually it would become muscle memory. Or at least I was hoping so. And when I thought about it, that's why I was becoming obsessed with Apex Legends. There was just so much to learn to get better. On one hand, it was possibly the most challenging game I'd ever played, but on the other, it was so satisfying to be able to outplay other people. This game had a true skill gap, which was really nice, and was definitely a breath of fresh air coming from Warzone. I could see why people love this game. Well, I guess all FPS games have terrible servers. Anyways, after 5 days of practicing my mechanics, I knew it was time to graduate to playing Battle Royale. I still had a lot to improve and there were many skills I wanted to learn, but I was on a deadline with this challenge. And who knows, maybe it wouldn't be that much harder than multiplayer. No! I thought it was just dropping down to a lower level. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad. Yeah, that anxious feeling that I had at the beginning of the challenge was back. When I started to explore the maps, I wasn't prepared for how big they actually were. And on top of that, the map that I played the first day was completely gone, and there were 3 other maps now that rotated every hour or so. I realized that learning every POI on all 3 maps was pretty much impossible in a month. So the only thing I could think to do was to pick one near the center of each map to land at every time. This would hopefully help me memorize that area quickly so that I could loot fast and at least have a chance to win early gunfights. I gave myself the day to wander around the maps to scout out my landing spots, and I went to bed knowing that tomorrow I had to stop thinking about it and just go for it. My first game was a solo duos match on Olympus. I had decided to play this mode for the first few days to practice fighting teams when I was outnumbered. And after third-partying a team for an easy 2-piece, I was pretty excited for this plan. But then when I ran into a legit 1v2 fight, things didn't go so well. I started off by actually hitting a lot of my shots to get a knock, but then I completely whiffed an entire R9 clip while hip firing. Oh, I trolled that. That was such an easy win. But I shook it off and got right back into another game. I was blessed again with some pretty solid guns at the start and was able to get a really easy kill before immediately running into a full team inside the building. But with 2 decent guns, I was able to hold the team off from pushing me, which allowed me to isolate each gunfight. Now it wasn't exactly pretty because I kept forgetting that these guns had small magazines, but you know, sometimes you just have to take whatever works. And after that fight, I went on to clean up not 1, but 2 more teams. Now, I wouldn't say these guys were the best players. Okay, maybe they were bots, but it felt good to already start having some success fighting when I was outnumbered. Spending those first couple of days working on my mechanics and getting into a lot of gunfights in the mixtape modes seemed to really be paying off. Unfortunately, I ended up getting pushed by a team, and I tried to use my tactical ability that makes me invincible for a few seconds to get away, but I ended up running into another team at the top of the zipline, which brought my new kill PR to 7. But I didn't have time to celebrate because now I had to try out a different map called Storm Point. And I have to say, I honestly shocked myself when I had another really good game because this map is massive, and I thought that finding people might be pretty hard. But the map size didn't matter because I was slaying out. The R9 was quickly becoming my favorite gun, and the Nemesis was just flat out broken. I was also finding that having several arc stars or grenades was pretty handy to keep in your inventory. I killed this team here, and then through pretty much sheer luck, was able to find several solo players by just following and playing the edge of zone. And before I knew it, I had made it to the end game, and I now had a chance for my first win, as well as my first double-digit kill game. Okay, who am I kidding? I had absolutely no shot at winning this game because I had no idea what I was doing. I first tried to shoot through the red side of a rampart wall, which isn't possible. And then I got really confused when this Mirage used his ability to clone himself. I mean, look at that reaction time. Oh, and then the Mirage clone got me again.
You got bamboozled.
Yeah, my gun skill is decent from playing so much COD, but I had a long way to go to get good at this game. And just to really hit home what I mean, one of my next games on Broken Moon, I picked up an empty armor and just didn't realize it, so I got absolutely torched a few seconds later. And then in a different game, I was on 7 kills with a lot of people still up and got lost in a building and died to zone like a complete idiot. But I couldn't be mad because I ended the day with an 8-kill game and doubled my previous PR. After all of this progress in such a short period of time, it seemed like a reasonable goal for this challenge would be to get 15 kills and a 3K badge, because certainly it would always be this easy. Well, man was I wrong. Day 8 started off horribly. I couldn't play duos because the queue time was taking forever, so I figured why not try solo trios? It couldn't be that much harder than duos, right? Well, let me tell you, I spent the next few hours getting absolutely slammed. It seemed like every time I shot my gun, I had a triple stack push me from out of the blue. So I spent a lot of time frantically running around in circles like I was chasing my tail or something. I'm not sure that there's a worse feeling in this world than watching 3 players stand over and loot your death box. I was flat out not prepared for how coordinated teams would be in pubs and how closely players would be stacking. Obviously that's how you should play to win, but I thought that pubs would be a bit more relaxed and noob friendly. If pubs were this sweaty, ranked must be insane. And don't even get me started on the number of third parties on Broken Moon. Seriously, the sound of that rail was starting to give me nightmares. My best game that day was only 5 kills because solo trios was just way harder than duos. But despite all of this, I didn't want to give up. Yeah, so it's definitely not fun getting slammed by full teams all day, but I know that it's making me better faster. Solo queuing was how I got better in Warzone, so I figured it had to work in Apex too. And after watching back some of my gameplay, I realized that I had made a pretty basic mistake with my training. I had practiced getting into gunfights by playing the mixtape modes where you can pick the guns you want to use and they already have all the best attachments. But in Battle Royale, you don't have control over what guns you find, and they oftentimes don't have attachments that make the guns easier to use. So my aim wasn't very consistent when I got stuck with guns that I hadn't really practiced with. And on top of that, your health automatically regenerates in the mixtape modes, but it doesn't in BR. So I wasn't used to switching between the syringes, medkits, and armor. In order to heal without taking my thumbs off the analog sticks, I had to change my grip on my controller, which felt pretty weird. However, I knew that if I wanted to fight teams by myself and have a chance at reaching my goal, I had to get more comfortable with using any weapon I could find, and I needed to be able to heal quickly. So to tackle this, I started to practice in the range with a larger variety of guns. I looked at the recoil patterns and tried to one-clip the dummies. And in between reloads, I practiced using the health menu to simulate what I would need to do in a gunfight. And specifically working on these weaknesses seemed to help. I started to get more kills off the drop with guns that I had been avoiding, and I was getting more and more one-clips, which at least gave me a fighting chance when I was outnumbered. I had a really great game on Stormpoint where I was able to use smart positioning to third-party several teams for an early 7 kills, and I even rotated through the storm to avoid dying now that I was more comfortable using the medkits. The game went down to the wire with 4 teams left and all of them converging on this building. I was locked and loaded with an R9 and a Volt, so I knew this was my chance to break some PRs and hopefully get my first damage badge. And with 2 more knocks, I was feeling like I had this in the bag, but then this happened. No, I'm not gonna lie, it was definitely a bummer not to get my first damage badge or beat my kill record, but I was happy to finally have a good game playing trios. Maybe this solo queue strategy would work after all. And over the next few days, I got into a routine where I practiced my mechanics in the morning and alternated back and forth between mixtape modes and battle royale games in the afternoon. Despite its downsides, the mixtape modes helped me practice my movement and get into a lot of gunfights, which helped me lock it in during battle royale games, which were a lot slower paced.
Let's go! First win.
But after days and days of grinding, I was starting to hit a wall. My mechanics were steadily improving to help me win one-on-one gunfights, but I wasn't getting higher kill games, and I still hadn't even gotten a single damage badge by day 14. I was finding it too hard to fight teams as a solo player. Learning new things like swapping armor in the middle of a gunfight to get more health was helping me get better at it, but I just wasn't consistently winning in these situations. I tried to play duo games when I could find them, but the queue times took forever, and it seemed like the skill-based matchmaking had been cranked up compared to the first few days of playing. The days were ticking by, and I wasn't getting any closer to achieving my goals for this challenge. I knew that it was time to make a drastic change. I had to get teammates.
Gee, it took you long enough.
Yeah, crazy, I know. Playing a team-based game with teammates. Wild concept. But hey, I can be a bit stubborn sometimes. Now, I was a little nervous to play with random people in a game that I was still learning because I didn't want to be the weak link that let the team down. and I still wasn't sure if this would actually help me get better. But this game right here changed my mind. We landed at my normal spot on Storm Point and quickly got into a fight with another team. I got hit with Mad Maggie's Wrecking Ball, which stuns you and gives the other team speed boosts, so I had to fall back to safety. But now that I had teammates, they pushed up to take my positioning, which allowed me to rotate around to the flank to get the easiest cleanup kills of my life. And in the next fight, I was able to play really aggressively knowing that my teammates had my back. And this helped me get 2 more kills that I probably wouldn't have gotten by myself. And that's pretty much how the rest of this game went. Our team rotated through the map like a unit, easily taking out every enemy squad that we could find. It was actually insanely OP having scanning legends on my team because finding kills was just so easy. We easily won the match, and I was definitely starting to understand why teams had been stacking against me.
This game is actually so easy when you just hold hands with your teammates.
And as good as that game was, the next game was even better. My stats were looking good with plenty of teams left, and I just knew this was my chance to get the 2K badge. I had my teammate by my side, and my aim was feeling unstoppable. Seriously, 1 clips are the best feeling in the world. And just a few moments later, boom, 2,000 right on the dot, my first damage badge. Now, I tried to clutch up the rest of the game, but unfortunately, I killed the solo player on the 3rd team, which left me in a 1v3 against the last team that I eventually lost. I got another 2K damage game the next day, and I started to think that my goals for this challenge would be pretty easy now that I was playing with teammates. However, I was about to make a big mistake, because on day 16 I saw something. Zip line movement. Now, if you remember all the way back to my first games on World's Edge, I had fought a demon using this kind of movement, and after seeing it again, I decided that now I wanted to learn it. I figured it wouldn't take too long to get it down, and it could be a nice break from grinding Battle Royale. Well, let's just say I spent like the next 5 days or so learning to super jump and do this thing called a mantle jump. Now, the super jump wasn't too hard to learn, but the mantle jump, holy there's like 10 steps and buttons you have to press to do it right. It was so hard to do that I even downloaded this community run mod that lets you play Apex on custom maps by yourself to practice your movement. Yeah, I pretty much went down the rabbit hole on this one. If you can't tell by now, I tend to get really obsessed with learning new things and just can't stop until I can do them. That was it! Oh, it was sick! Well, by the time I got back into the swing of grinding Battle Royale, it was day 23. I had expected to continue right where I had left off and was ready to get back to beating my goal. But this game had a different plan for me for the last week of this challenge. You see, I had thought that having teammates was going to be the magic bullet to help me play better. But playing with a random team wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. One of the first things you do when you load into the lobby is each player picks their legend, and there can't be 2 of the same legends on a team, which was an issue for me because I found out pretty quickly that Wraith was quite popular and I had absolutely no idea how to play anyone else. So there were many games when I tried to use my Wraith ability to get out of a gunfight and I just died because, well, I wasn't playing Wraith. And I was also discovering that Apex has a problem. I call it the pub dilemma. Lobbies start with 20 teams, and I'd say at least half of those squads hot drop into 1 or 2 different POIs on the map. I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's a casual game mode and people want to get into the action quickly, but this causes the lobbies to die out really fast. If you don't land hot, you're basically playing a looting simulator for 20 minutes because most of the teams are dead after the first circle. I would have preferred to play a more balanced game, but with the choice between extreme action or boredom, I'm choosing the action. Which sounds fun and all, but landing hot isn't exactly a walk in the park, especially when you're playing with random teammates. Okay, I don't think that was my fault. Yeah, between the lobbies dying out quickly and my teammates not being built for landing hot, it felt like I was back at square one, where I needed to be able to 1v3 teams if I wanted to do well in Apex pubs. I was getting to the point where I could beat teams that weren't very good like this one, but later on in the same match, I ran into more coordinated teams and things didn't go so well. I killed this 2-man squad pretty easily, but in classic Apex fashion, a different team heard the gunshots going on in this part of the map and came to third party. So I had to retreat and hide to heal up, and I have to say there's nothing more terrifying than hearing a full team running around above you. I tried to rat and go for a 1-clip, but that didn't work, which put me in a situation that was pretty hard to win without teammates. I missed too many shots on the first guy and got completely surprised by the second guy because I didn't hear his footsteps at all. But I did at least hit some nice PK shots, which made me feel a little bit better when I died. Now I know some people will say that not everyone wants to land hot, which is why people leave when they die, and I totally get that. But what was interesting is people left when they were eliminated no matter when it happened in the game. In this match right here, we were on a pretty good pace, but we got pushed by a good team, and as soon as both my teammates went down, they immediately left the game, even though there was plenty of time for me to grab their banners and hit a respawn beacon. I definitely don't blame people for leaving because it really does take a long time to regain in Apex, and it's not like we're playing for money or for a rank, so you can't really expect people to play like a team. But it was frustrating to spend the rest of this match getting chased by 3 stacks, only to die in the storm just a few points shy of a 2.5k damage badge. Now I did manage to get the badge the next day, but the game wasn't that fun. My teammates died early, and I more or less farmed damage for 15 minutes because I couldn't find any openings to get kills without dying. I also whiffed a lot of shots at the end because I was nervous, so I'm not sure if that's really an accomplishment to brag about. I wanted to get higher kill games, but there always seemed to be something that went wrong. In this match, I was on pace for a good game, but things took a bad turn when the second ring started closing. We were fighting a team, and I got a knock, but my one teammate went down, and the other either crashed or left the game. Now this might have been okay, but then a new team third-partied us, and I had to frantically portal away to stay alive. I killed the first player who pushed me, but when I went to heal, I realized the team had a Mad Maggie, and her riot drill made it impossible to stay behind cover. So I had to run back even further and pray that I could open this door without getting killed. Somehow I managed to do that, and I ended up getting a pretty nice kill on her when she pushed me. But then, I should have thrown a thermite here to prevent the last player from rushing me, and I should have reloaded my guns before healing up. So I wasn't ready for this gunfight, and I completely blew one of the best games I had in this challenge so far, which felt pretty terrible. At first, I wanted to chalk these losses up to needing better teammates, but the reality is that this was a skill issue. And I wasn't the best teammate either. After seeing how people don't take pubs seriously at all, I started to say screw it and would land hot hoping that the rest of my team followed me. I had played too many games where we would land far away and loot up for 15 minutes, only to die to the first team that we encountered. So that felt like a complete waste of time. I think it's just tough in general to go against teams that are playing together when you're in a random squad. So I was getting pretty burnt out. I'm not sure what Apex does in terms of matchmaking for pubs, but it really did seem like most teams we went up against were at a much higher skill level than us, and were also definitely a pre-made squad. Playing Apex Legends was reminding me that there are certain games you have to play with friends, because if you don't, it's a dark and lonely world out there. Okay, that was a bit much. Even though I ended up getting slammed most of the last week, I did finish out the challenge strong by increasing my kill PR to 10, and I unlocked the 3k badge on the last day of the challenge by farming damage after my team left the game. I also kind of learned how to super glide, which was cool because you know movement's awesome. Is Apex better than Warzone? You know, I'm not sure. I just had fun trying something new, and I'm happy to have another game to play. Things didn't exactly go to plan, but nothing in life ever really does. And besides, I think I may have been playing the wrong game mode this entire time.